joining us tonight. This is Amanda with 92 County Strategy. Tonight we are discussing the most important election, in my personal opinion, that you can step up and take. It is the most involved, most grassroots position, and that's the position of precinct committee person. So tonight we're going to go over that. Please remember that 92 County Strategy is a political action committee. We're manned by volunteers, and we pay for everything we do through donations. So go to in92.org and make a donation tonight. And we are here simply to answer questions, explain positions to people, and help remove some of the barriers that keep people from running. We want everybody to understand that elected officials are just like anyone else. The only difference is they feel a call to serve and they step up and they do it. They're scared in the beginning. Nobody really knows exactly what they're doing. And we just kind of figure it out along the way. So tonight you're going to learn about the precinct committee person. And with us, our guest panelist tonight is Robin Mallery. And this woman is a mover and shaker in her area and gets so much accomplished. And we're really pleased to have her here with us tonight. Robin, thank you for joining us. If you could just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
Well, sure. I'm living in Evansville, Indiana. I've been here for almost 4 years now, having moved from Northern California. And I have the pleasure of being able to devote my full-time efforts to being a community volunteer. When Senator Sanders announced his candidacy in 2015, I got involved and got excited. And from there, I had my first foray into political action at a grassroots level. So it's kind of versioned from that point on.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, did you have experience in community service in general before you stepped into politics?
Well, a little bit in where I used to live in Northern California, yes, although I was working full-time and living a very hectic life, so not as much. But I am quite immersed in the aspects of food justice here in the Midwest. And that's actually related to being engaged in politics, because unfortunately our food systems are overshadowed by political interests. So I had a couple years of that experience under my belt as I got more engaged on a serious level in local politics. Yes.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. That's one thing that we really try to make people understand when they attend our webinars and anything we do, is that, we're just normal folks, and that's really the goal, is to make we're not celebrities, we're nothing special, we're just normal people that care, So
yeah,
yeah.
Well, I was just chuckling because I was glad to hear you say that, because when Bernie announced and his campaign began to put out sort of action-oriented calls within communities, I was waiting for somebody in Evansville to do something to have that first rally that they had planned for the end of July in 2015. I was waiting and waiting, and I waited like 3 or 4 days. It's like, what? Nobody's going to sponsor this? Well, heck, I'm going to. I stepped up. And I think that's how it is with fresh activism, especially in this particular time in our lives. I don't know that you plan it. It just sort of falls your way, or you feel compelled to step up, into it and for it. And, the rest just happens because your heart's in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is absolutely how it works. You find something and it clicks and it hits you, and you're like, how is no one paying attention to this? And you decide, I have to help. I just have to help. And oftentimes, and I don't know if you found this like I have, once you step your foot up there and you put yourself out there, you will find other people gravitate to you and be ready to help you.
Sure. That's absolutely true.
Is that something?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
that's
and then I really noticed.
Right. So you end up with new friendships, new partnerships, new colleagues, new comrades, that people that have similar intention, and you find those that with whom you resonate, and you pool your talents and you have a movement. There you go. That's how you get started.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. You just get it all together and it goes. It definitely rolls downhill once you get it started. So
correct.
And here. No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say it doesn't always go as you anticipate, and that's part of the beauty of grassroots. There's really no hard game plan. You sort of get to pick and choose which direction you want to go, and sometimes it's a little bit convoluted, but because you're working with others, it's always a forthright effort.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those things, and bringing up grassroots, that's actually a great segue into what we're covering tonight, because this position, the precinct committee person position, to me, is the absolute most grassroots part of political elections. It is definitely the most on the ground, connected, most important part of a political party. And it's a party office. It's not an elected office. It's considered a party office. So it is the one place within the major parties that the voters have direct input into the party structure itself. And a lot of people don't realize how important that is and how much power that comes with.
And power, not so much power, but just influence. Influence.
That's a much better word. Yeah.
Well, right, because you're elected by your neighbors who are in your precinct, so you have a deep connection to them, whether you know them at the time of the primary election or not. You will get to know them because they are, in fact, in your precinct, which is your very own neighborhood.
Right. So here's the thing. So now we know that, so here at 92 County Strategies, we are nonpartisan. Our goal is to help anybody and everybody that feels that desire, that they feel like they could really do a good job to represent their friends and neighbors. So there are a couple of rules to this, though. So say you want to run as a Democrat, and, it is going to go based on however you voted in your last primary. That's right? It's the most recent primary, correct?
My understanding was that it was the last two elections, the last two,
right.
So one of which would be a primary, one of which would be a general.
Right. Well, in the general, they won't be able to know which way you vote because it's all on one ballot. So, and it's all anonymous. But in the primary here in Indiana anyway, in Indiana anyway, we have open primaries. So, but you still have to pick a party. So it's open in the sense that you can pick either one you want, but if you pick, say, a Republican ticket, there's absolutely no Democratic choices. So you only get to pick off the Republican ticket. So it's not a mixed ticket. A lot of people misunderstand that. So, and there is a form to file. Now, if you didn't vote in the last primary, you can always get a letter from your county chair. So, say you were out of town, you were sick or something, and you couldn't vote, but you still want to run for precinct committee person. All you have to do is get a letter from your county party chair, and usually those are located on the state party's website. And you can get that letter, and you can go down to the clerk's office, and you have to file a CAN 37. So, and that's like not until January and February of next year. So, and January 9th. January 9th. Okay, so January. Yeah. Do you know if there's a fee?
No, there's no fee. There is no fee to file. Correct.
Oh, that's wonderful. So if you want to run for precinct committee person, it doesn't cost anything, and you just have to have voted in the last primary, and you just go to the clerk's office and file a paper. That's not too difficult.
Correct. Yeah, and they'll notarize it there. You can download the form. It'll be ready in December of this year. The 2018 CAN 37 will be ready in December. You can download it at home, print it, and then fill it out, bring it to the county clerk. Do not sign it, however, until you're in their witness, and then they'll notarize it for you.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it does have to be notarized. And now I'm not sure our local county clerk's office notarizes on site. For some reason, I remember having to go have something notarized. So I imagine that's not necessarily every county notarizes it for you, or is that like law standard practice? They have to notarize it right there?
Well, and actually, perhaps notarized is not the correct term, but what I read in the state guidelines was do not sign it until you are in the presence of the clerk, and then they will sign it as your witness. So perhaps It's not a formal notary like you'd notarize other kinds of documents, but they have to be able they witness your signature on the form.
Right. Okay, so now I'm going to go through a couple of the things that pertain to the office of precinct committee person, and then I'd like to talk to you about the goal of a precinct committee person and kind of what it does, and discuss the whole point of one. So one thing that the precinct committee person does do is, also besides the state precinct committee person, on the ballot is going to be the state convention delegate. So the state conventions will be held next summer, and that's also another form. And it also pertains same corresponding primary, letter from the county chair. All of that is exactly the same. But in this instance, you'll go to the state convention and actually participate in electing the governor candidates and secretary of state and attorney general candidates. So the process is very similar, but then what you do once elected are very different. So also very important position. But tonight we're going to cover precinct people. Now, what would you say is the most important thing, Robin, that a precinct committee person does?
Because at least in Vanderburgh County, and I thought about this prior to our call, I'm not sure how much of the state has changed their election polling places, but there are no longer specific polling areas within a precinct. You're allowed to vote anywhere in the county in Vanderburgh. So that has diminished somewhat the original focus of a precinct committee person, which was to manage the voting place and make sure there were enough volunteers that day and all the equipment was working and all the papers were there and that sort of thing. So that has kind of diluted the role of the precinct committee person. So when I was asked by our local Democratic Party, why do you want to be a precinct committee person? What is your vision of this? And what I said was, I think the precinct committee person knocks on every door in their precinct, meets their neighbors, regardless of how they may or may not be registered, be sure they are registered accurately and correctly so that they can vote, and then begin a human dialogue, talk to them about the issues. And a whole other topic would be healthcare, of course, but that would be, for instance, one issue that covers, that everybody has some interest in, that everybody wants to talk about and hear more about. So the precinct committee person engages the residents of their precinct who happen to be their neighbors and keeps them focused on the upcoming primary to make sure that they participate as citizens, exercise their right to vote. That's what I see as the primary role of a precinct committee person. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. And I would have to agree with you, because the desire to vote and the excitement around an election, it gets very overwhelming for a lot of people with all the ads and the bombardments on TV, and it just kind of becomes talking heads. But when you have someone in your neighborhood that that comes to you and says, hey, there's this piece of legislation coming up, you should maybe know what's about to be voted on, and I'd like you to have this. And then, a couple weeks later, they come back with something else. And then, right before the primary, they come back and say, hey, are you registered to vote? You know where you're voting at? You don't even, Correct. Obviously, it is a party position, so you're going to advocate for your party, of course. But Correct. Just the act of getting them involved and getting them to pay attention to what's going on is huge. It's absolutely huge. And it creates that community.
It does, and because the community doesn't gather around the precinct per se anymore, because they can vote, anywhere in the county. It's one way of, in fact, establishing a community. One thing I wanted to mention too is that while some people may be overwhelmed with the excitement of voting and then all the talking head aspect of it, some people have checked out of our democracy. Some people are going to answer the door, and they are going to say, no, I wasn't planning on voting. And given that you have the right camaraderie with this person, and the vibe feels right, and you can segue into heartfelt conversations, that would be the time to talk about why it's so vital that we participate in our elections, and some of the consequences that we're seeing now with some of the low voter turnouts in Indiana, for instance. So I think that the conversation can go both ways depending upon who it is that answers the door.
Oh, absolutely. And right now we have, it's with people really looking into this grassroots level of organization. The precinct committeeman, if you're looking at getting involved in politics, it's definitely a great one to start, especially if you want to learn about those city politics and things like that. And then also if you want to learn about the way the party works, because the precinct committeeman actually has some jobs within the political party as well. Correct. So they work on both sides, right?
Right. You can step up and take on additional roles within the party. That is correct.
Right. So and then also there's some voting responsibilities that come with being a precinct committee person. So you have when you have a party, for instance, let's say you have one of the major parties. At the county level, you have a series of executive members, a president, a vice president, or a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, and treasurer, and then usually some sort of social media or something like that. Now they're adding those. And then, but
so the
people
that
elect
vote for that. Yes.
Yeah. So the people that actually elect your county chair are the precinct committee people. So that's why, to me, that's also one of the most important parts, because we see a lot of articles out there where people aren't necessarily feeling properly represented within different aspects of their affiliation. And so that's a really good way to make an influence. If you become a precinct committee person, you then become the voting body in your county and things like that. And you also get to pick your vice committee person. So if you run out there and you decide you want to run for precinct chair in your town, you can get a vice committee person to help you out. So it's not all just on you.
Right. And that's highly recommended. Yes. And in Indiana, the law is, pardon me, it's not a law. It's a rule that it be a male and a female. So that if women run for, and I encourage women to run for the precinct committee person position, then they can appoint a vice committee person, and that would be a man.
Right, absolutely. Or either way, either direction, you could go with that. But I obviously advocate women in politics. So for me, I would love to see more women, and just stay-at-home parents, those parents that know the neighborhood and know the problems. Sometimes the best precinct committee person is not who you would think it is. There was at one time it was described to me, the best precinct committee person is the quintessential, you see it in movies, the retired person that kind of peeks out their windows and knows everybody's business. Because they're going to know when people move in and out of the precinct, they're going to go, oh, we have somebody left, they're going to need to register somewhere else, or somebody's moving in. We need to get them registration cards, let them know where they're going to vote.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Essentially a nosy person is a great person to be a precinct committee person if all the neighbors don't mind opening their door to them.
Right.
So that's definitely something to consider. So there's two aspects to it. On one aspect, it's kind of great because you get to interact with your community and your neighbors, and you get to learn what people really need. And so if you're an activist, it's a very fulfilling elected party position.
I agree.
So in my personal opinion, I don't know. I just feel like it is, I don't know. I like knocking on doors. Do you like knocking on doors?
I do, and I had that first experience with, as I mentioned, got really involved with the Senator Sanders campaign, and I did so much canvassing, and it was just incredible. It was just really eye-opening on so many levels for me. So yeah, I'm comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I love canvassing. It is one of my absolute favorite things to do. I take my oldest daughter with me, and I make her knock on doors too. And so it is just one of my favorite things because people don't expect it anymore, especially in rural Indiana. You know, it's not something that you get very often around here. And I also volunteered on the Sanders campaign, and there were doors I knocked on, and people were so excited. They were just so excited to see someone come. They didn't care what party you were from. They didn't really care who you were for. They were just excited to have someone to talk to about the crap that had been bothering them. And that goes so far to re-engaging people.
Yep, I agree.
It really does. It goes so far to really re-engaging people on how to care about it again. You know, oh, someone's actually listening to me. For so long, people have felt like they haven't been listened to. So the precinct committee position, you not only get to listen to the people, it's your responsibility to take those viewpoints and those opinions back to your party, whatever party you're with, and make your executive board see, you know, this is what they need. This is what they're talking about. And then in theory, they move it up to the next level and then the next level. And then hopefully people understand what they need to be representing when they get elected. You know, that's the goal. Our elected officials don't know what to do if we don't tell them.
Yes. And it's better for us, the citizens, to influence them than for corporations to influence them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's an important aspect. Yep.
Now, one thing before we just talk about precinct committee people all night long that I did want to mention, now when you're running for any office, you always want to check with your county clerk and the Indiana Election Division to make sure that you're filing the correct forms, that you're filing at the right time of the year, you hit your deadlines on time, and you always want to make sure you're following rules when it comes to your reporting, your financial reporting. You always want to make sure you're really close and paying attention, and you have someone very, very trusted handling your money, and you're filing all those reports. So we're here as a source of information, but at the same time, we want to make sure you're going to your specific county clerk and your state election division, federal election division, depending on where you need to go. And you are making sure you have all of those rules, because we here are just going on an overview. We're not actually covering all the very specific things. So if you have further questions, we can always give you links to those state and county offices. If you can't find them, we'd be happy to do that. So one of the things that we feature here is that we have a chat option. And for those live viewers that are with us, they can post a chat online and we can answer your questions live from there. So if you're ever joining us and with us this evening, we do have someone in the chat that has made a comment. They're in Hendricks County, and I guess the voting machines that you were talking about are called vote centers. Is that correct? We don't have them here. We actually still have the old precinct set up.
So you're telling me that the church that's down the street from my house, where I have been voting the last few elections, is called a vote center?
If that's the electronic thing where you can, that's the electronic voting where you can go to all the different ones. See, we still have the paper ballots where you have to go to the individual precinct. So,
oh boy, I wish we still had the paper ballots in Vanderburgh. So yes, we have electric voting here, and I didn't know it was called Vote Center. That kind of makes sense, but yeah, you can go to any of them and cast your vote.
See, that sounds really interesting. That would be good for people that work on one side of the county or something, and then live on the other side of the county and need to go vote. they could easily vote somewhere next to their place of business. That would be so convenient if we had something like that.
Correct. So that must have slipped by some of those who are so much in favor of voter suppression that they are actually enhancing the opportunity to cast your ballot. Plus, we also have I think it's 10 days before the actual election day. That there's early voting here in Vanderburgh County as well.
Oh yes, absolutely. Early voting is actually something that you can find all over the country. I really would love to see us get mail-in voting here. That would be fantastic. We have limited mail-in voting for elderly people and people that can't get out to vote.
Right.
Yeah, the absentee voting. But man, I would really love to see, because California has mail-in voting, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's see. Laura is saying that fewer people are needed to staff the vote centers, and they do also have early voting. Do you know about the Vote by Mail campaign? Is this an activist campaign trying to push people to vote by mail, Laura? Or is this a state? I do not know. Robin, have you heard of a Vote by Mail campaign?
Well, it hasn't been. It's not approved. At least in Vanderburgh, it's not something that we can do unless you are in fact certified for the absentee ballot.
Right. Well, Laura says there is a community level group pushing organizing for the Vote by Mail campaign. Laura, I tell you what, you drop a link to that on our Facebook page, and I will share that and get that out of there, because I think that is fantastic.
Right.
I would love if you could do that for me. I would really appreciate it. All right. Well, let's see. Now, tonight we have gone over precinct committee people, precinct committee person, not committee men or committee woman or person. I like precinct committee person. I've been using that for a while. I noticed that it was incorrect. I need to fix it on here, but that's okay. Vote by mail. Indiana, votebymail.com. Contact Indiana at indianavotebymail.com. Laura, thank you very much. I will get that up, and I will see what we can find out about that. Maybe we can get somebody on here to talk about that when we do our voting overview. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. All right. So, Robin, now I noticed, the reason I had you on tonight was I noticed that you said something on the internet about there was going to be a precinct committee person training. Now, we haven't had anything like that down here. Do you know anything about that, or could you describe a little bit what one of those looks like, to maybe, in case anyone's listening that would like to organize one?
Well, sure, yes, and I can only tell you what we put together for Vanderburgh. We contacted and just as a reference point, because the progressive activist groups have been encouraging us, people like you and me and anybody who's listening, and so many others, they've encouraged us to get involved at these grassroots levels, be a precinct committee person or a school board or whatever. So because that feels like a manageable commitment, if you will. But many people, as I began to talk about it, what does it entail? What do I have to do? What, is there a job description, and how many hours it would be? So it seemed to me to make sense to put together what I'm calling an information session and training session. So, because some people just want to know before they even make an informed decision as to whether they're ready to step into this potential role. And we have plenty of time between now and when the paperwork has to be filed. So I contacted the state Democratic Party up in Indy, and I received they emailed to me their template for their own precinct committee person training. It was a PowerPoint, and there was quite a detailed handbook. And I kind of went through that and picked and chose which slides were appropriate. Some were sort of training the trainer, so to speak. So I pulled those out, and I just put it together as a presentation for community members who want to learn more about what a precinct committee person role entails and what that commitment looks like. and I modified that handbook as well, so that it was more relevant and applicable to us here in Vanderburgh. And I booked a room with the library. You know, our library is free. We have big, giant meeting rooms, and arranged to have the audiovisual present, or the electronics, and made my PowerPoint, and we're just going to get ready to have that event. So put it on Facebook. Made an event. The active groups in the community, I shared it with those group leaders so they could then tell their participants in Damsels in Defiance and Indivisible and Our Revolution and the Women's March. There's many groups here. So all of those leaders then spread the word. And we're hoping for 100 people to show up to the first. I'll do 2 between now and when the paperwork gets filed. And
that sounds fantastic.
Right, and so it's going to be, an hour, and we'll have a little munch of some kind, so people, feel nourished, and we'll just throw up that PowerPoint and answer questions, and encourage people to download the file or the form when it's ready in December, and put the application in.
That's awesome. That's absolutely wonderful.
The other thing we did was we contacted our the local party, and I received a list of all the precincts, and gosh, I think there's between the committee person and the vice committee person, I believe there's 136 positions in Vanderburgh. Wow. And I believe we have like 60 that are vacant, most of which are the vice committee person, but that's just as valid of a role as the committee person, because you work side by side with your committee person, and you get your vote, as you mentioned early on. You get to vote into your local Democratic Party platform, and the executive committee, or the leaders of the group and such. So we have 60 positions that are going to be available come. Actually 60 positions that are available now, and any of the positions are eligible to be filled by somebody new in the 2018 election. I think many people will be somewhat hesitant to run against somebody who's already been in that position. That would be the time, though, to ask about the vice committee person position available.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, that was one thing that people at one point did not understand, is that they are all elected positions. So you may not be the kind of person that goes to a meeting every single month. You may not be the person that brings the bean dip to the party, but that doesn't mean you won't make an amazing precinct person. And it doesn't mean that you won't, because when you go to the meeting and you're only speaking for yourself, sometimes you get cold feet, you get shy, you don't necessarily feel right speaking out of turn. But if you go and you're carrying the voices of your neighbors and your friends and family, it can bolster you and really help you get the message into the right places. Because as a precinct committee person, you're affecting the platform in the party. You have the ability to affect which way a particular party goes. So it's definitely something to consider if you are out there and you're resisting and you're wanting to change things in either direction. I feel like if you're honest, you care about people, and you're passionate, I don't really care where you come from. So if you're out there and you're an honest, passionate, person that feels the drive to really help people, by all means, consider a precinct committee person position, because it is very fulfilling, and it can be as rewarding as you make it. As much as you put into it is what you're going to get out of it.
Well said.
So now we do have Kara in here. She's asking about the meeting that you're doing, that you were talking about, the precinct committee person training. And they're wondering if you're just going to be doing that meeting in Southern Indiana. Now, that you're just doing that for Vanderburgh County, correct?
Yes, correct. And Kara should contact her, whether it's Democrat or Republican, her county election, the county party officials, and ask them what they have planned, because I'm sure that I would imagine that all of the counties in Indiana are going to want to fill those positions so that we can, really take hold of our Indiana state government. So, and ultimately affect national policy as well. So she would want to start with her own, local party and ask them what they have planned. And if not, then, if she has the wherewithal to do this and get up and speak in front of a group of people, she can contact the Indiana State. Her name is Brittany Solis, is the woman who is, I'm actually not sure of her official title, but she is the one to whom I reached out, and she sent me all the information electronically. And from there, I was able to make the presentation.
Okay, that's wonderful. Well, I did put in the chat, Kara, if that was a lot to get from Robin when you were talking, if you want to email us your information at 92counties@gmail.com, I would be happy to track down your party officials. Just put your party and county information there. Allen County, I see that. Oh, yeah, I have a great relationship with people up in Allen County. If you just want to email me, I'd be happy to get that to you. So, yeah. Oh, wonderful. Okay. I definitely. So we probably have some mutual friends up there. And I'll be happy to connect you with some folks that can help you there, Kara. And that's great. And, maybe, Kara, maybe you're the one that needs to hold it. You're here, you're listening, you care about it. Maybe it can, speak to you and get you excited to go do that. This
Wonderful.
Facebook event was originally going to start at 10 p.m. This is being recorded, and I will have it up on the website tomorrow, and you'll be able to access it and go back through everything we covered tonight. There was a little bit of a miscommunication in timing. Robin thought it was AM, and it was PM, and that could be my fault entirely. I have 4 kids, and it's summer vacation and almost back to school, so that could have been my fault. So we did get started a little early tonight, but this definitely will be recorded, and you'll be able to access it on in92.org tomorrow. So I will make sure that is available right away. I do apologize for anybody that's tuning in early for the 10 o'clock show. We did start an hour early tonight. We started at our normal time. So, Robin, I really want to thank you for joining us tonight. And all the great information, and it's just refreshing to talk to people that are just people that care. You didn't know anything about teaching the precinct committee thing. You just said, what, I want to do. This is important. Let's do this. And you reached out and you started getting answers, and now you're looking at 100 people, maybe even twice.
Correct.
So
yes. I would also like to extend gratitude to you, Amanda, not only for reaching out to me for this little segment, but for all the work you are doing on our behalf, and that the way you're willing to connect people and do the research and facilitate change and get people engaged. I think it's marvelous, and I appreciate you very much for that.
Well, I appreciate you, and I know that down there it is definitely not easy, and you're up against a wall, but you guys are really doing great work down there, and I think it's
We're
great.
Trying.
So.
Thank you. We are trying. Yes.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us tonight here at 92 County Strategy. Just a reminder, if you go to in92.org, you can contact us through our contact menu there. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter, and we would love to hear from you. Get your feedback. Tell us what you want to learn about. Tell us what interests you or what you're confused about, and we'll talk about it. That's what we're here for. Our goal is to remove barriers so people that want to run can, and to help educate people. Everybody knows what a senator does, but a lot of people don't know what a school board member does. So our goal is to teach people about those offices that are so important to your local community. Coming up next on 92 County Strategy is August 10th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be having a discussion about the position of school board. So it is going to be a great discussion. I've got a guy coming on that is dynamite. He is motivated. He's in the middle of an election right now. Actually, by the time he comes on, we will know if he won or lost. But he is just exactly what that school needs. So I sure do hope they elect him. So All right. Well, Robin, I thank you again. I thank everyone
Sure.
for attending tonight, and I hope everybody has a great evening, and we can see you again next time.
Thanks, Amanda. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.